Welcome to the Opal Foundation series. In this 4-chapter episode, Orchestrating Exceptional Guest Experiences, we welcome Cate Abbott, Director of Social at Target.
Looking at what faces you and your team today, what would you say are your biggest challenges as a marketer? And I guess I would also want to know, do you think any other marketers are facing similar challenges, or do you think yours are kind of nuanced to Target and to your environment and to the scope and scale of your reach?
Right. That's a great question. I don't know that it's that nuanced at the moment. I don't think. I think, something that keeps me up at night is, are we evolving and moving fast enough? Because I feel like, we always say social moves at the speed of culture. And it feels like, especially over the last few years, that culture and a news cycle is really moving at warp speed right now. And are we keeping up with that? Are we showing up in the right way for our guests and for our brand? Are we scaling effectively? I think we certainly have benchmarks that we set for ourselves or have established to sort of measure that. But I think it is sort of within this idea of our existing reach and performance. And so, what I'd love to know, and I do benchmarking with other companies to understand, getting 1 billion organic impressions feels amazing to me. And that's what we did in 2019. I don't know that we'll get there in 2020, but what are other big guys doing and getting, and how do we sort of stack up to them? Not because I compare myself or ourselves to other big brands, but I do think it provides really great context as to what our aspiration could be, or what we should be shooting for in a measurable way. So maybe that is a universal challenge that all marketers are facing. I don't know. I do think it comes down to connecting, focusing on connecting our teams and connecting with the guest, and really thinking of the guests as human beings beyond social. But we can really tell meaningful stories that have an impact and at scale. If we're staying connected and really listening and aware of what's happening in the world, right?
How do you self-monitor, or how do you keep score? You talked about scaling effectively, or evolving, moving fast enough. How is that something that you have to kind of monitor yourself? Do you have another group? How do you know how you're doing?
Yeah, I think, as I said earlier too, is we've established benchmarks, but it's always sort of competing against ourselves, right? So what, one of the things we set out for is we were able to do, have this engagement rate, have this kind of reach, impressions, etc. in 2019. How do we beat it in 2020? So, we do have some data. Certainly sales attribution too really helps to understand how we're doing. And I wouldn't say that's even our number one objective in the content that we create. I think it's a great halo effect to the content that we're making, that we are actually selling product against it. But we really do look at it. We look at the stuff that we're creating as being a vehicle for engagement with our guests that potentially ends up, of course, we're a retailer, we're going to make that as shoppable as possible. So, there's absolutely ways to measure our success. It is sort of that magic in the bottle that is harder to measure. And, that's why I go back to, we have to, yes, it's important to keep track and measure and set goals that are measurable. But we also have to keep in mind, it's not all about the numbers. And going back to that whole idea around art and gut, and what can come together in your strategies, even your leadership style and the way you work with your team is really, I think, how we can create truly successful marketing experiences for the guest. So it's all of the things. It's not just one or the other.
Yeah. Well, you talk about that magic in the bottle, and I think there's obviously some of that. That's a part of all of it. But you and your team, you've created this environment where you are foundationally organized, right? You approach things, you're aligned, you work really well together, you're connected, all those different things. And so out of that, it's kind of like, they always say the only way you get lucky is putting yourself in the position to be lucky. And I think that's what you guys have done. So yes, you can take advantage of the magic in the bottle, but it's only because you've done the work on the back.
Exactly. Yep.
So that's pretty cool. Cate, thank you so much for talking with me today on the Opal Foundation series. It's great to hear from you. You've got a lot of insights. And anyway, it's been a pleasure talking today.
Thanks for having me on, Jake. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing more in your series.
Absolutely. Thanks, Cate.
Thanks.
Thank you for watching this chapter of the Opal Foundation series. To view the entire episode, please visit workwithopal.com/blog.